All right, Tennessee, how are we doing? This is Santiago Escanape. I'm running for governor of the state of Tennessee. We're getting closer to November of 2026. We're getting closer to voting day. What I'm trying to make clear is that my promises are unique for the state of Tennessee. If I don't win this election, if the votes aren't there, then those promises, they vanish into thin air. They don't materialize, they don't happen. So we can go about our lives thinking, well, perhaps Santiago Escanape gets elected, but if he doesn't get elected, there are consequences. We don't get our armed forces base. We want a brand new armed forces base in Tennessee. If I don't win this election, then that doesn't happen. We want to see a GDP of 7 to 9%, a very strong, robust economy. Well, if I don't win the election, that doesn't happen because the other candidates, they don't promise a 7 to 9% GDP. So we want our digital infrastructure and our infrastructure generally to be state of the art. Well, then we need to vote for modernization and defense. We need to be able to put the program into place. We need to vote for Santiago Escanape. As we get closer to November 2026, I remind you of we can view the upside to everything. Everything's going to happen. We're going to have this incredible economy. Our modernization, our infrastructure gets taken care of. Our armed forces base, we get that. The state of Tennessee becomes the defense capital of the United States. All those things can happen, but the votes need to be there. So as we get closer to November 2026, another reminder, we can't get lulled into the status quo complacency. If we get complacent, we do without these things. November 2026 comes around, we didn't make the difference. We didn't have the turnaround votes. We voted for another subpar candidate, or we didn't vote at all. We didn't actuate the change that the state needs. So another reminder, we've got to stay on top of things. We've got to keep our guard up. Modernization and defense. Modernization and defense. We need to vote for Santiago Escanape for governor. If we do vote for Santiago Escanape for governor, we can have a GDP of 7 to 9%. We can have economic integration where the institutions of the state produce robust energy so that we can have our system in place where our economy is as strong as it can be. We can connect the armed forces institutions to the state departments, the 22 state departments. We can yield the resources so that our economy is always on track, so that we can then have a means to get to the 7 to 9% GDP. 7 to 9% GDP doesn't just happen. That's why the other candidates don't promise it, because it takes an elaborate system in order for 7 to 9% GDP to be possible. That's why the votes need to be for Santiago Escanape, because we know how to get it done, and we're planning to bring those changes into the system. It has to do with economic integration. We have to be able to improve the data. The data has to be improved with the integration plan in order for those 7 to 9% numbers to be possible. We have to modernize our infrastructure, both our non-traditional infrastructure, our infrastructure generally. It has to be state-of-the-art. We want everything to be pristine and beautiful. Well, that can happen, but the votes need to be for Santiago Escanape. Otherwise, you're looking at candidates that only promise transportation. It's only roads and bridges. That's their idea of infrastructure. It's limited to that. So we're going to go through with, if the non-votes are there, or if we don't win this election, we're going to see another 4 years of the status quo, another 4 years of subpar results or non-results altogether. It's not acceptable. We can have a 7 to 9% GDP. That's going to be one of the most impressive economies in the entire nation, nationwide. We can have a GDP of 7 to 9%. We can modernize our infrastructure to the point where it's state of the art, and the stature of Tennessee improves tremendously, both globally, nationally. The appeal of the state of Tennessee improves dramatically. Those things can happen. We can have a brand new armed forces base. Remember, if Santiago Escanape doesn't get the votes, the chances of that happening are zilch. That opportunity is done away with. So as we get closer to November 2026, another reminder, these elections have consequences. This one's a very important election. If we vote for Santiago Escanape, these things can and do happen. We see them happen not even gradually, very rapidly, 4-year time period, with a very smooth transition, a transition where we don't even notice it, but then we're going to notice, historically, we're going to notice the results. The results are going to be timeless. The results are going to be impressive. The results are going to be results. Because otherwise, we're dealing with candidates. We're competing against candidates that are already entrenched in government. They're already doing this for a living. So if we vote for one of them, or if Santiago Escanape, the outsider, doesn't win, then we're going to get the same results. So wake up today, wake up tomorrow. Do you want it to be the same exact thing? The same subpar thing? The same non-ideal thing? No, obviously we want to improve things. We want things to be dramatically different, tremendously different. We want to see impressive results. We want to have no regrets. Too much involvement by Washington, D.C. A lot of these candidates, they're too reliant on Washington, D.C., too reliant on President Trump. They almost don't have their own ideas. They don't have their own platforms. They're saying the economic results, well, Washington, D.C. will put those results in. They're not keeping the state of Tennessee in mind. They're not putting their best foot forward as far as Tennessee. We need to have the agenda. Santiago Escanape has the agenda. We can't be reliant on Washington for our economic results. Washington's not going to give us a 7 to 9% GDP. The national GDP is most recent account, 3%. That we need to be able to make the difference. That's why keep track of the promises. What does Santiago Escanape promise you as far as if modernization and defense carries the day, wins the election? Those things are going to come true. You're going to see those things materialize in 4 years' time. That's a happy ending. That's a good result. That's an impressive result. Otherwise, with the other candidates, they're promising what they're promising, and there's not much there. So we don't want to fall into the status quo. We don't want to fall into the routine of subpar results. We want everything to be grandiose, impressive, pristine, beautiful, perfect, and we can make that happen by voting for Santiago Escanape for governor. I'm wanting to be the 51st governor of Tennessee. That's what I'm wanting. And the results are going to be impressive. There's going to be results, but the votes need to be there. We need to be prepared to carry the day. 1.2 million votes will probably win us this election. We need to get the numbers to where they have to be. Otherwise, we look back on this election with another sense of regret. 4 more years where we put somebody else in charge where they weren't as dedicated or as focused on materializing impressive results. And then we go into a world of regret because we had an opportunity in November 2026. We had an opportunity to make a tremendous difference, to put an impactful change, and we let that opportunity go by. I'm not trying to be cynical. I want it to happen, but I want to see these results materialize because otherwise the things don't happen. The downside, the flip side to this material is if we don't vote for Santiago Escanape, we don't modernize our infrastructure. We don't get a new armed forces base. We don't improve our data. We don't have a data overhaul where we can achieve an economy where the GDP is 7 to 9%. We don't become the defense capital of the United States, where the state of Tennessee is leading by example and leading nationwide as far as what it's trying to do militarily. I'm trying to focus on military defense preparedness. We want to be the most prepared